You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Yes. Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show. We got the best three back again. I'll be your host tonight. I'm Mags. You can catch me on X at Hot Seat Mags. And with me today, we got Ali and Kev. Picture to you, Ali. You can find him at FF Dynasty Grill on X. Ali, how you doing, mate? You're full kit, something, right?
Banker. Yeah. Absolutely. It's been the best weekend of my life, it feels like. I've saw the Buccaneers defeat the New Orleans Saints. So we are leading the NFC South. We're on the way to the Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield is baking. The Ryder Cup come home to Europe. Chelsea even managed to get a win last night. So, I mean, it's just been the perfect weekend. Fantasy was good. Really excited for tonight's show. There was some interesting performances and some topics to speak about for Dynasty. So, how you doing, Mags?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thank you. I had a bit of a mixed emotional sporting weekend, but delighted with that Ryder Cup win as well for Europe. That was great viewing, and felt a little bit like that guy who jumped into the river after. Good on him. That was absolutely brilliant. And we've got our other co-host here. You know him as the Dynasty Go himself. It's Kev at Dynasty_Go on X. Kev, mate, how are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks, lads. Yeah, lots of nice positive vibes and energy. I think it's a really important week for Dynasty this week. I always see it as the sort of, you make your decision now as to what you're doing. Is it rebuild? Is it pushing the chips all in? So I think it's going to be a really active week, personally, for me with trades, etc. But I think tonight's show will sort of get the audience thinking about what sort of players should I be going for, should I be pivoting from. But really good. Like Ali said, he's a banker. I'm actually a banker by trade. So we're a show that's full of bankers.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're going to go from one GOAT to another, because we're going to start our first topic, which is the greatest of all time through 4 weeks of their first season. It's Puka Nacua. Ali, what you got to say about him?
Oh, we're full of goats tonight, us three. And now we have to talk about Puka Nacua. Matt's going to love this because everyone's talking about this guy and he has to leave the show. So, we are going to talk about him, and just unbelievable. He is officially outpacing the two best receiving yard seasons of all time, Cooper Kupp in 2021 and Calvin Johnson in 2012. It's pretty unbelievable, on pace for 221 targets, 166 receptions, and 2,129 yards. Lol. And the thing is, you just saw the clip. I saw the clip today in the locker room where Sean McVay's doing his speech and Puka Nacua is not there. He's doing his interviews, and he come running in, and the whole team just serenaded him. Just absolutely love him. Just shows you how good and how massive part of that team Puka is already in terms of his young NFL career. The Colts, obviously, they didn't love him. He absolutely destroyed them this week. What was it, 160 odd yards? Clearly Cooper Kupp has mentored him, because there's just so many similarities between the two. You could almost take off his mask and you think Cooper Kupp is under there. It is unbelievable. But looking at the stats and where he's winning, he's actually winning in all three phases of the field. He's not just solely lining up in the slot and winning, a bit like Cooper Kupp does unbelievably. He's actually lining up all over the place, and he's doing out routes, go routes. It's just getting open and even producing after the catch, which is the unbelievable thing. I mean, teams must think, how did he slip to wherever he did in the draft? And it is unbelievable. But obviously, the big question is, Cooper Kupp he could be back week 5. We've not heard too much this early in the week, but he's available for week 5. My hot take is that Puka Nacua could actually be a better wide receiver than Cooper Kupp. He could have a better career than Cooper Kupp if he obviously carries on this projection and under the mentorship of Cooper Kupp himself. In terms of Dynasty, the big question is, with Kupp coming back now, How is that going to affect Puka in Dynasty? What are we doing with Puka right now in Cooper Cup's return? So, Kev, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Matt's been giving me some abuse, some big licks in the in the DMs, and I mean, let's be fair. I did call Puka Nacua that his best possible season could be wide receiver 60 this year. So yeah, the joke's on me on that one. I'll take the accountability. I think what he's done is truly amazing. The fact that he's up to wide receiver 14, 15 at keep trade cut. Nobody could have predicted that. Just what he's done is truly mind blowing for a third day wide receiver. I think in terms of there's probably actually more on the meat on the bone with that. He's got 1 touchdown in those 4 games. So any projections that you're doing for full season, 4 touchdowns on about 1 million catches, it doesn't quite marry up in that sense. I think in terms of what we're doing now, are we worried about Cup returning? Are we trying to buy him, etc.? I personally think you've missed the boat on Nacua. Like to go and pay for him now when there's so much risk on this one event as to what happens with Cup, because you can tell the story, yes, that they coexist together. Nacua can play on the outside, Cup's on the middle. The offense becomes great with a massive pie that fits them both. But there's a lot of risk as well. The fact that Cup could come back and negate Nacua in the sense of going to be a 1A, 1B. Could be another factor where he is a volume guy and there's just not that volume there, and he ends up being just a really solid player rather than this potentially elite player. I think in terms of a potential projection, someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, where he's getting a ton of volume, he's making the most of it. He can be potentially a top 10 wide receiver, but to really do that elite stuff is going to be a struggle as a volume guy. So I just think with Nacua, yeah, if you've got him, you could have cashed out and made a really handsome profit. But I do think right now it's probably the wrong time to buy him. Once you get past Cup, if he's still producing, then you're not going to have to pay a lot more than now. Probably paying the same price, but you're getting rid of all that risk as to what happens at this big moment. So yeah, I've not got any Nacua. I'm not going to buy him just now, but he's someone that if Cup comes back, has a good couple of games, Nacua's price drops, and then I think that's when I'll be looking to bounce.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like at the minute, you mentioned his keep trade cut. I've just checked. It's all the way up to 12 now. He's wide receiver 12 on keep trade cut. I mean, he's right behind Stephon Diggs, which is just who. I mean, I know Matt loves him, but I never thought he would climb, that high. I still think this is the perfect time to move him on. I think he has got the highest percentage share of targets in the NFL right now. He's been given the highest number of catchable passes in the NFL right now. I tried to look up today. Actually, maybe I'm missing things. His yards after the catch is actually quite good. But in the last game, I watched. He seemed to catch the ball and fall down a lot. So I'm wondering maybe if that is a gap in it, that we're actually looking at Matthew Stafford being just exceptionally good at putting the ball exactly where it needs to go. And Puka's just, he's got good solid hands. He's in the right place. I just don't see how he doesn't take a dip as soon as Cooper Kupp comes back. And right now, I'm looking at the rankings. Someone is just lighting me up right now. And I did predict there would be a buy window for this player about now, and there is. You could probably get Jackson Smith and Jigba straight up for Puka Nacua. And I'm doing that all day, every day. I don't know if you boys are the same.
Go on, Ali. Take the tough question.
It's difficult. I think in terms of, I'd have them ranked pretty close. I'd probably have Puka slightly ahead. They'd be in the same tier. It would feel pretty disgusting to trade Puka straight up for JSN, especially if you've got any aspirations of the playoffs. You're not going to be making that move. But if you're rebuilding, I'm happy to do that right now and cash in, because JSN's going to come good. It only takes time.
I'm just literally not doing any Nacua trades until there's more information.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on from one go to... Yeah, we're going on to another, right? This guy, Christian McCaffrey, I mean, the amount of podcasts that have said the amount of superlatives about Christian McCaffrey, you'd think he'd run out, but I feel like we're just getting started, Kev. This guy is just unbelievable, right?
I mean, yeah, just looking at the numbers, we had to talk about Christian McCaffrey after that day on Sunday. Just an absolute beast. Running back 1 on the week, 48.7 fantasy points. He's been a top 7 running back in each of the 4 games. Looking at the landscape overall, he's 31 points ahead of running back 2 just after 4 games, which is wild. You look at the names around him as well in sort of the performance so far this season. Raheem Mostert, Kyron Williams, Devon A-Chain. I'm calling him Devon A-Chain, so it's tough. So yeah, when you look at that, not only is it the massive gap, but it's around players that people weren't predicting going there. So I just think he's so safe. He's the Dynasty MVP for me so far this season, even with what Nacua's doing because of the massive advantage he's giving you. If you're a contender, you've got him on your team and you're going against other big guns up there. Maybe someone's got a Breece Hall or a Jonathan Taylor as contenders before the season. You're absolutely destroying them. So I think he's giving you such a massive advantage. He is a monster. I think the role, it's solid. It's said they keep saying they're going to reduce the workload. I'll believe it when I see it because he's on a fantastic pace. If he holds out on this pace, it's going to be another record breaker season. It's right up there with his best ever seasons in such a, I guess, an environment that's produced. It's the best environment he's been in of his career. He doesn't have to have the millions of touches he had at the Panthers because it's just such an efficient offense. So, yeah, he's my Dynasty MVP. I think he's doing absolutely brilliant. And I'd love to hear more from you guys on this topic as to what you're doing. How do you buy him? How do you sell him? What are your thoughts on him?
I mean, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you are a contender because he's kind of forced you to be a contender. Like, he's that good. He's that far ahead. So good luck buying him because even though he's 27 years old, I think if you get an offer for Christian McCaffrey for 2 firsts, you're still saying no because he's going to win you a championship. So you have to think, like, how good am I at turning first-round picks into championship players? I can tell you this for free. You're not going to turn one into Christian McCaffrey because he's one of a kind. So it doesn't matter how many first rounds you pick. It's not going to equal a Christian McCaffrey. The only thing I can think of how you're going to get Christian McCaffrey off someone is if you go absolutely wild and you go, I'm going to give you the one running back that you might take. And that's Bijan Robinson. Is the only thing I can think of why anyone would accept a trade for Christian McCaffrey is if you give him a super high-end quarterback that they've been missing, or you go ahead and go, you know what, I'll give you Bijan Robinson because Christian McCaffrey is going to win me a league this year, and that's the only thing that I need. But I think he might be a bit crazy to do that, but that might be what might take. Ali, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a high price. I think to move off him right now, like as you mentioned, if you've got Christian McCaffrey, you can't be rebuilding side if you've got Christian McCaffrey on your team right now. So I don't know what you're doing. I think if this is the time Kev mentioned at the top of the show, you need to be reviewing your roster right now in terms of points for what your potential is this year. Look at what the other teams are scoring and who they've got. If you think that you're just about a playoff team right now with McCaffrey, but with some really underperforming wide receivers and running backs, perhaps you've got some injuries, then you can move off him. And I think now is probably the perfect time. I mean, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit. I was bullish. I've always been bullish on this move from McCaffrey to the 49ers. And I said it was just because of his workload and the offense just gives him so many scoring opportunities, whereas he had to do all the hard graft in Carolina. It is the perfect offense. I'm not worried about his age at 27. I think now, if you don't feel like you're a true contender, then you do need to sell him because you're probably selling him for really almost peak value to what he was 2 or 3 years ago because he's just scoring so many points. He's going to win someone at the championship, so they're going to want him on their roster. So to move off him, if you're not looking at contending, I mean, you got to look for the young guys. I know that this guy is disappointing in Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's still a guy that I'm confident in long-term in Dynasty. You've got Breece Hall, who's obviously struggling with injury coming back. I've got him neck and neck with McCaffrey in terms of Dynasty. So if you can move off McCaffrey for Breece Hall plus, I think that's a great move to make. So you got to look for younger guys, perhaps someone like Kenneth Walker. You don't think you're going to get Bijan, but if you can get one of those 3 guys plus, I think that's a great move to make if you're not a contenders yet.
Yeah, and hopefully your league doesn't have penalties against face mask calls that Breece Hall should be getting. Anyway, let's move on from one running back that definitely is making the difference to another that really should be making a huge difference, and that's Austin Ekeler. He was out again last week. He's not going to be playing next week. We're 5 weeks in. We've barely seen the guy that was running back 1 last year. If he was on your team at the start of this season, you were probably again thinking that you're a contender. So I'm now wondering, if you're sitting at 0-4, if you're sitting at 1-3, 2-2, or whatever, what for you guys are you thinking? I've got Austin Ekeler to slot back in my team. Is there a particular record you're thinking, if you're sitting at that, I should be okay? Or is it time to sell if you have a losing record at all? Let's go to you first, Ali.
Yeah, I think it depends on the makeup of your team. I'm not particularly worried about Austin Ekeler in terms of this season and probably even beyond. I just think the Chargers just need to look at what they've got in his replacement in Josh Kelly. Has been absolutely terrible, and it's forced Justin Herbert to be the quarterback 1 in fantasy right now, just because of how much he's having to throw the ball, and he's been great at it. I think they really want Ekeler to come back. I think they're managing his workload. I think you've got to just look at where you are. You've got to be realistic. But yeah, I think I'd still be confident in buying Austin Ekeler, and I'd still pay a fairly hefty price to get him. I still think he's got 2 or 3 decent years producing him. We know when he does step onto the field, he's a top 5 running back, just week in, week out. So those sort of guys, I'm happy to take a shot on because his value's low right now because of the injury, I think, and because of his age. Yeah. I think there's an opportunity to get him. I'm personally still confident in him.
Yeah, absolutely. Kev, is that something you're looking at as well? Are you thinking you're going to buy or sell like now? Do you wait till he comes back? What are you thinking?
I mean, yeah, Alex summed it really well. I think like he played week 1, did Ekeler, and he was running back 2 on the week, which it just shows that he's got fantastic upside. He's game script proof. He plays 50-60% of the snaps, so he doesn't need these mega workloads as such to really show off in Dynasty. I think just with the age factor, I kind of want to be leaning into that more than sort of selling him at this time. I think it's always a ticking time bomb with running backs as to when you sell them. We saw with Dobbins, for example. If you're rebuilding side, like sorry to bring it up, Max, I know you own him in every league, but it's sort of that thing where you've got a ticking time bomb in a running back. If you are rebuilding, how long can you hold and get the most value when you've got your contending teams peaking to then move off? There's always that risk. For example, if you're thinking, right, Ekeler, I'm a rebuilding side, I'm going to leave it till week 10 when the playoff hunt's going on. If he comes back week 6 and gets re-injured and he's done for the season, you've then got a 29-year-old running back next off-season who they might get out of his contract, might end up in a different place behind, in a tandem with, I don't know, Derrick Henry or something like old man's brigade. But yeah, I'm leaning more to going to buy him because, you know, when he's fit and available, he's doing excellent. I think if you've got a team that's 2-2, 3-1, and you've got an Ekeler to come back, that's going to massively put you over the top as well. So I do really like him. I think selling him, I like to be a little bit risky. I don't think you sell him now. He's got the bye week. You sell him after the bye week and use that as advantage to increase value. Say, look, he's coming back. He's had his bye week, so you're actually getting someone that's not got that to come. Whereas if you buy, say, I don't know, A-Chain or Swift or one of these sex names at the moment, they've got the buys still to come.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'd be doing as well. And let's go from Austin Ekeler, one of the best runners in the NFL, to another guy that looks like one of the best runners in the NFL, but he's not a running back. He's the new hotness of quarterback. It's Anthony Richardson. Ali, you're absolutely loving what you're seeing from him, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I know Kev is, because Kev was a massive lover of Richardson. Was on him before I was. I was CJ Stroud, which again is a good take, but Anthony Richardson is looking fantastic right now. His initials are AR, which also stand for assault rifle. Fire this guy out of a rifle because he's so fast, and not only that, he's fast heading up Dynasty rankings right now, especially definitely mine. It was really good to see him back this week. I mean, the first half really wasn't very pretty at all, but in terms of fantasy production, especially in the second half, it was another awesome show, and he was top 5 quarterback this week. 3 total touchdowns, 2 of them rushing touchdowns, which you'd love to see. 5 rushing touchdowns through the first 3 games, so that's really nice. But personally, that's not even the thing that I really want to talk about. That's the thing that I expected to happen. The part that I'm actually more excited about is the passing element, and the fact that it's not great, but it's still much better than I anticipated that it would look at this stage of his career. I thought it was going to look super ugly. I thought there was going to be loads of turnovers and he was going to put his team in holes. But he's actually limiting mistakes. He's only thrown 1 interception. I thought there's going to be loads. He's not making mistakes. He's being smart. He's shown great chemistry with Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and his tight ends. I think he's got real chemistry with those already. He's just playing really well for Indianapolis. He's keeping them in games, and he's also dominating in fantasy. So personally, that is a great recipe. Whereas you look at Justin Fields, awesome for fantasy, not quite great this year, but the team are on a 13-game losing streak. He could lose his spot as a starting quarterback, whereas Anthony Richardson is looking the opposite. They're not always winning, but it's keeping them in games. And I personally, this reminds me of Jalen Hurts in 2021, the year before he exploded to the elite level. I just think Anthony Richardson is 1 year away from joining the likes of Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, even Patrick Mahomes in terms of how we talk about these guys in Dynasty. I really think this is the time where you're going to have to buy heavily and pay a hefty price for Anthony Richardson, but a bit like Jalen Hurts in 2021, where you had to take a risk because if it didn't work out in 2022, he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback, but it worked out. He's an elite quarterback for fantasy. Now's the time to invest in him. So he's looking absolutely great right now.
Yeah, he's looking amazing. And we have to go. You mentioned it before. Kev was big in on this guy. You mentioned Jalen Hurts as well, Ali. You're getting Kev all riled up. He's got to say something. What are you thinking, Kev?
I mean, I'm just glad you can only see me top half, but yeah, I think in terms of sort of the numbers, I am more impressed with his passing than his rushing so far. Just rush-wise, we knew it was going to look like Pete Cam Newton sort of numbers on there. I think looking at the stats, the 2.5 games he's played, he's been on pace for top 5 QB in all 3 games, which is fantastic for a young rookie that's been a raw passer in college and had lots of question marks about him for a guy that's not got his elite running back in the backfield. So all the pressures on him to perform with a wide receiver core that, let's be honest, it's below average at best with Pittman, and then maybe Josh Downs, someone that's decent, a bunch of scrub tight ends that might have potential at various points. But I think what he's doing is truly brilliant. And yeah, if he keeps up this pace, he's going to be top 5 by the end of the season. Like in Dynasty, honestly, like people, they don't want to think about that because they've got the sexy names that maybe are underperforming, Trev, Burrow, etc. But what happens if he's QB5 as a rookie, a raw rookie with no weapons? It's only going to get better for him. He's 21. The sky's the limit. I think rest of the season, you've got to be really happy with how it's gone, both in a rebuild and as a contender. Like, if you're in a super deep rebuild, you can flip him for pretty much whatever you want because he's going to be worth so much. But yeah, long-term confidence in him's through the roof. Think about the rookies. There's not many that's hit so far. CJ Stroud's one guy that comes to mind. A-Chain, Nacua. So, but there's loads that have missed. People are getting low on Bryce Young, and JSN and Gibbs, etc. So just the confidence is so high. I was on him early. I was his biggest fan. He's probably even doing better than I expected. So he's leaving me speechless. He's doing that well.
I mean, this is quite weird. You said by the end of the year you think he could be, top 5 quarterback for Dynasty. Key trade cut right now. Anthony Richardson, quarterback 5.
There you go.
Today, he is above Lamar, above Joe Burrow, above Trevor Lawrence. I mean, is that you get a trade? You get a trade offer in your inbox tomorrow, guys. Joe Burrow straight up for Anthony Richardson. What are you doing? Like, you have to pause to think about it, right? Which is saying something. Ali, what are you doing? Who are you taking?
I'm taking Burrow right now, but again, it's not going to feel great because you're going to get more points from Anthony Richardson probably in the next few games while Burrow's still banged up. But I've still got Burrow ahead in Dynasty. I've got him and Herbert I would take ahead of Richardson, but when you get to Lamar, I mean, Lamar's playing fantastically. You could put him in that top tier. But there is still question marks. And Trevor Lawrence, I'll take Richardson over Lawrence. But that's probably where my cutoff point is.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because before the season, I had Richardson in that tier below the likes of Lamar, Trev, Burrow, Herbert. If the offer comes in now, it's genuinely team-based, league-based. Like if let's say you need to get a little bit safer at QB, being a tough one with how Burrow's playing at the moment. But I think long-term, we know Burrow's safe. With Richardson, he's 4 games in. I love how the community doesn't overreact to these sort of things. But yeah, it's all team dependent. If you've got loads of risk, move to Burrow. If you need an upside and it's the other way around, let's say you've got Burrow, Cousins, and Geno Smith, something like that, take a shot on Richardson. Like if you've got a really competent 2 and 3, shoot for the moon because I said he could be top 5 end of this season. He could be number 1 at the end of next season.
Yeah, that's the ceiling, right? The ceiling is Dynasty 1-1, like overall. Like it really is. Like that is how good he is. That is the trajectory he's on. So, I mean, adding Anthony Richardson to your team, that could really give your team a big hand. And if you want your team to have a little hand, we've got a guy for you as well. Because Kev, we're going to talk about Kenny Pickett, right?
Oh my God, what a seg! That's probably the best segue I've heard on any show of all time. So much props to that for someone that listens to about 20 podcasts a week. But Kenny Pickett, I mean, after getting hammered for Justin Fields last week, I felt that I had to get my pride back and talk about a guy that I've been super low on. But I guess it's more of an open question to ask the question: is it Kenny Pickett to blame? Look, we know 2023 has had such a poor performance to start the year, sort of right at the bottom end, bottom 4 QB in terms of the output, that a lot of the efficiency metrics, expected points, for etc. Just terrible performance. Yes, he has had a tough schedule to begin with. He's played the 49ers, he's played the Browns, who could be great, or maybe they're not so great. Maybe that's just been about who they've played. But then, like, the game against Houston and I think Las Vegas, games that he should be really taking that step and looking great, and especially considering sort of everything within that offense. I think there's been a ton made of sort of Matt Canada being the issue with the play calling, etc. And that's all I've seen. I've not seen it's anything to do with Pickett. It's all about Matt Canada, the OC, who got a lot of stick last season, is getting it again. So it seems, it's actually like watching South Park where they're blaming Canada all the time. Like, I think there needs to be a bit of accountability, a bit of something in between where Kenny Pickett is going to get some of that blame. Now, I think the injury does save him a little bit because by the time he gets back, Deontay's potentially back. Hopefully the offense is more in sync than it has been. Maybe Canada is the problem and he's relinquished his duties, etc. But it doesn't seem that way. He actually has been working more with Pickett this off season and early season. So, It's a really tough one for Pickett. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on him, the implications on the team. Are you buying him? Are you selling him? Is it the right time to sell him now, or do you wait till he's back? So yeah, just give us your thoughts, lads.
I mean, I just can't stop thinking about Matt Canada with a wee flappy head and beady eyes now, right? Just on the sideline. Well, first of all, if you ask Danny Football 77 on Twitter, he'll tell you that Matt Canada is not the problem. But I think today it's been revealed that might actually be Matt Canada's burner account. So if you've not seen that, make sure to check it out. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I just think Kenny Pickett's not very good, right? I don't know. He's kind of a player that'll be on your team. You're probably not going to be able to sell him because people probably aren't going to want to buy him, to be honest with you. Like, he's going to be really hard to move, I think. And people will only be willing to buy him. It's like, oh, I'll give you a third. Like, well, I'm not going to give you, there's no point doing that. But I think people will really struggle to even give you a second for Kenny Pickett because they've kind of been burned too much for him. And I think it's slightly unfortunate because Matt Canada isn't doing a good job. He is missing his main weapon with Deontay Johnson. Najee Harris isn't the weapon that, he's maybe been sold to be, especially like in the receiving game. I think he's got a bit of an uphill battle. Let's not forget this is the worst offensive line in football just last year as well. Like they're not great, but he's also not doing himself any favors. So, I mean, if you can buy him, I think a second you'll probably be able to get him for, but I don't know how many people are going to go and offer that. Ali, what were you thinking about that?
Yeah, if the price was a second, I would buy him. And I'd buy him all day for a second. And this is a guy that I'm not a big fan of. Never been a fan of. In the draft process, he was my quarterback one, just because that was a real class, and he was the only one that got any sort of draft capital. But the ceiling, and I've preached it, and so has Kev. The ceiling's just not there with Kenny Pickett. The time to sell him was probably in the preseason when he was balling, and everyone was like, well, this is the year for Kenny Pickett to take the next step. But yeah, I think that, Kev, you're absolutely spot on, and nobody's talking about Pickett being the problem. I think they're at a place where the Steelers don't tend to chop and change quarterbacks very often. They tend to stick with their guy. They tend to be fine with it. And I think that Kenny Pickett, I don't think he's in any danger of being benched. I think the injury has saved him in the short term. I do think there's going to be brighter days ahead for Kenny. Be leaning on the buy side of Kenny Pickett. But yeah, it's a fine quarterback 2-3. I think still long term, I think he could be the answer in Pittsburgh. I think their defense is not playing anywhere near as well as it should be. There's a lot of problems there. I think Matt Canada will get the boot sooner rather than later, and things will look up probably for Kenny Pickett. So if you can buy him for a second, I'm not sure whether you can. You might have to put a little bit on top, but I'd probably still be doing it right now. Yeah,
let's hope he's not like Kenny from South Park, so we know what happens to him in every episode.
That's absolutely true. We're going to go from Kenny Pickett, one of the younger quarterbacks in the NFL, and I just want to take a moment to chat about some of these old guys, the old guard of the NFL, these old quarterbacks that not so long ago everybody was saying, this is great. All quarterbacks can play until they're 40. This is unbelievable. So I want to have just play a little question time with you guys here. I'm going to say a name of a quarterback, and you're going to tell me if you absolutely trust them to be a quarterback on your dynasty team for the next 2 years. Okay? Mm-hmm. Sound good? All right. So Let's go, and we'll start with Matthew Stafford. For the next 2 years, do you feel safe? Yes or no? Ali?
I'm going to say yes, I do, with the positive things that are coming out of LA right now.
I'm going to say no. I think he's here just on the injury basis. I know he's had some stuff in his personal life. So I'll say no for 2 years.
Matthew Stafford, currently the oldest starting quarterback in the NFL at 35 years old. Ryan Tannehill. Yes or no, Ali?
God, it's probably no. I wouldn't be confident at all. I think there's still probably one more team that might give him another chance, but no. The answer is definitely no.
Yeah, agreed. I think he'll still be in the NFL. I don't think there's any injury worries there, and he's good enough to be a little bit like an Andy Dalton, where he's hanging around. He can be pretty decent in patches, but he just screams to me like bridge QB with a rookie next season.
Yeah. Okay. We'll pick up the pace a little bit. So I just need one word answers now. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
All right, Ali. Next one. Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Russell Wilson.
Spicy.
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh. Geno Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
Interesting. Derek Carr.
Yes.
That pained Ali, but yes.
Interesting. Well, I gotta be honest, you guys are a lot more positive than me, because a lot of these guys, I'm thinking they could be on their way out of a starting job pretty soon, because some of these guys are not producing at a high level anymore. Matthew Stafford obviously is, but he's 35. Ryan Tannehill, he's not been good. Kirk Cousins, he's been not good either. Russell Wilson, not been good. Geno Smith, nowhere near as good as he was last year. Derek Carr, I don't even know why he was playing last week, but he's not looked good. All of these guys, it took me all the way down to Jared Goff at 28 years old to go, this guy actually looks good this season. So are we seeing a decline in these quarterbacks? Were we wrong? And actually, it was just Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers who were just really, really, really all-time great good. And actually, you can't play quarterback until you're 40. It's just, you have to be generationally good. I don't know. Ali, what do you think?
Yep. I mean, anytime that I can come on and give props to Tom Brady, the GOAT, then I'm going to do it and just say, I just think what he done in joining the Buccaneers at 42 years of age and winning the Super Bowl, winning 2 division titles and taking us deep in the playoffs both times. I just think it's extraordinary, and we're not likely to see it ever again. Perhaps Patrick Mahomes can do it, but then he's going to have earned so much money by the time he gets to 38, 39 that he won't need to play. So I just don't think we're going to see it again. So in terms of your question, in terms of when you look at the quarterbacks that are performing, yeah, they're all young quarterbacks. I think the league is friendlier. I think it's probably easier to transition to the NFL right now in terms of what the rules are. So yeah, I think we're not likely to see it again, and there's certainly some question marks. It's just the older guys have big contracts, which is why I think that they still will be hanging around in a couple of years. But other than that, in 2 years' time, Derek Carr's not performing well now. I know he's injured, but Russell Wilson in 2 years' time, his contract's still going to be horrendous, but he's going to be performing pretty poorly. So
he could be 37 as well.
There's going to be some questions asked of the decisions made there.
Yeah, and then what do you do? Sorry, Kev, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it's situation based as to what you're expecting from the individual player. If you're expecting him to be QB1, it's very unlikely. But also, we've been blessed with Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, etc. that are outliers, because you don't get all these. You don't get these coming around every year, do you? So just have your expectations set. But I think age is, rather than think about age, think about it like you did with the question marks. 2 years, can they play?
Yeah.
Because that could be different for one QB to another. It's going to be different from a rushing QB to a pocket passer as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And yeah, no real cut off for age then, Kev, right?
Yeah, I think it's rather than think of the age, think of it as 2 year window. Think about this is for every player across every position. In my view, can you expect them to be at that level in 2 years? If not, then it's on that slope to being a sell.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the last thing to close on, actually, let's take Matthew Stafford, for example. One of the hardest things to do in Dynasty, and Ali, I'm going to pitch this to you. If you're looking to move someone like Matthew Stafford, it might be hard to get a quarterback back from. What kind of things do you do when you're looking to get another position straight up for a quarterback without getting a quarterback in return? Because I find that one of the trickier things to do playing Dynasty.
It is difficult because you never want to leave yourself short at the quarterback position, especially because, I mean, nearly all my leagues are super flex leagues. So you need at least 3 quarterbacks ideally. But in terms of if you look at your roster, and I traded Matt Stafford to Kev for a second, and it was probably, I should have probably got a little bit more at that looking at it now. But I'm in a rebuild, and Matt Stafford is just putting points on my team that I don't want right now, and you need them off your roster. So in terms of trading them away for draft picks or draft capital, or just a younger position, that's absolutely fine in my eyes. Building, you haven't got to worry about having 3 quarterbacks on your roster, because you don't want someone like Stafford, because it's a declining asset on your team. You just want to get rid. So I'm happy in that terms to move off him to get another position. The only other time I will do it is if I've got, say, 4 quarterbacks and I've got 3 that I'm really happy with. That 4th quarterback, I'm very happy to trade for an asset in terms of draft capital or another player. But in any other way, it is difficult to move off a quarterback for a non-quarterback.
Yeah, I think only thing I would add to that is you can literally trade off to any position, but it's creating more work. So if you're getting a running back, then you've got to potentially move that as well. So yeah, if you want an easy life, you want quarterback or you want picks. If you want the hard life, you'll just take anything with value to then put in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've certainly put the work in tonight, guys, right? What an absolutely cracking show. Thank you so much to everybody who's been listening and joining us for this great show. That's it for week 4 recap of the Dynasty season. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, follow us over on X at Wildcard Dynasty, and obviously the Fantasy Wildcard main channel as well. Check us out on Tuesday next week as well. Boys, it's been a pleasure. Listeners, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week. Bye.